All right. With that, once again, I'd like to thank our host, Case Western Reserve University. And to say a few words about Case Western, I'd like to welcome up Dr. Joy K. Ward. Dr. Ward is the interim provost and executive vice president here at Case Western. Before that, she was the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here. She has won the Presidential Early Career Award presented to her by Barack Obama. And she is a graduate of both Penn State and Duke universities. With that, Dr. Ward, come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the campus of Case Western Reserve University. I want to also welcome all of those who are joining us here online today. We are so pleased to be hosting this event on our campus and in person again this year. Please make yourselves at home on our campus, enjoy the wonderful cultural offerings that University Circle provides, and we hope that you have a wonderful stay here and make many new colleagues and friends in the process. We are excited and honored to be a partner with the American Astronautical Society and the NASA Glenn Research Center in this 5th annual John Glenn Memorial Symposium. It is likely no secret to any of you, but Case Western Reserve has a long and storied history in science and in engineering. In fact, Case Western Reserve counts 16 Nobel laureates among its alumni and faculty, including the very first American scientist ever to receive the prize in the sciences, Albert Michelson, in 1907. What's more, 4 of those received the prize in physics. You may also know that the founding administrator, the very first administrator for NASA, was a man named Keith Glennon. But what you might not know is that he headed the agency while on leave from his post as the president of the Case Institute of Technology, one of our university's predecessor institutions. He was associated with Case for 20 years, both before and after his time at NASA, and he retired in 1966. When the university dedicated its new engineering research and graduation education building as the Glennon Space Engineering Building in 1969, it was said to embody his uncommon and creative leadership in the service of higher education. I like to believe he served as that kind of a leader to NASA too. In recent years, faculty members from across the institution have collaborated with NASA and NASA Glenn on multiple research projects. And one of those is helping to plan for the future of refueling a spacecraft while in space. Ultimately, this work will support NASA's Artemis efforts to land the first woman and first person of color on the moon. Just last week, NASA's Physical Sciences Research Program selected 6 proposals in response to its Physical Science Informatics System call for proposals. One of those chosen is Case Western Reserve's own Yating Liao, who, along with Chris Zorman, is on the local organizing committee for this symposium. Yating's work will bridge the knowledge gap on how fires behave and how materials burn in partial gravity environments. Other faculty worked with NASA to investigate the properties of planetary cores, determine the topology of the universe, model the atmosphere of Venus, better understand ideas about the nature of dark matter, conceptualize a spacecraft that could land on Mercury, and much, much more. One of our newest faculty members is using stratospheric balloons to fly instruments to understand the composition and evolution of the universe. This is amazing stuff that we do today. But this is just a handful of the examples of faculty members working with NASA directly and in areas relevant to NASA's work. Today, there are over 200 Case Western Reserve University graduates working at NASA. More than 130 of them at NASA Glenn, and 2 former NASA Glenn directors, Marla Perez Davis and Janet Cavandi, have close ties to the university. I say this all to make it clear that Case Western Reserve is a leader in science and engineering, and we are committed to capitalizing our strengths with you as partners. For example, We recently announced efforts to construct a new 200,000 square foot, $300 million building called the Interdisciplinary Science and Engineering Building, or ISEB. And I think we love acronyms here too, almost as much as you do. The primary goal of this collaborative space is to create an environment that encourages the collision of innovation and real-world impact, real problem solving. Broad themes in the research areas represented in this building will be next-generation materials, robotics, population and urban health, climate change, neuroscience, and much more. As President Kaler likes to say, it is our job to create, innovate, and move breakthrough discoveries for people to make better lives. And that is exactly what we intend to do through both this investment and our ongoing commitment to elevating research at our university, including our work and our partnerships with NASA. Now, before I turn the program over, I'd be remiss if I did not share a bit of my own personal connection to NASA. I am a plant biologist and an ecologist, and I study how plants respond to rising atmospheric carbon dioxide, both over the last tens of thousands of years as well as into the future. And such work also relates to space travel and how we can sustain human lives in space over the long term. My choice to attend graduate school and to pursue science as a career was solidified through programs that NASA offered. One of these was the Space Life Science Training Program that I was accepted into in 1990, for fear of dating myself in saying that. In this program, I researched how plants grow and develop in microgravity at the Kennedy Space Center. I visited the VAB building to see how the shuttle was being assembled. I walked right up to the launch pad of a shuttle, and I interacted with amazing scientists on site at the Kennedy Space Center, just as a 20-year-old at that time. Thus, I would like to personally thank NASA for the learning opportunity that solidified my career as a scientist and that helped me bring me into higher ed and leadership today. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining the symposium. We are so grateful for the opportunity to host you and to have those of you joining locally from NASA and NASA Glenn. And we welcome all the rest of you from the American Astronautical Society and all others in attendance. And with that, I will turn the program over to Jim Way, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. All right, and now I have the honor and privilege of turning things over to Jimmy Kenyon. Jimmy Kenyon became NASA Glenn Center Director in late 2022. Before that, he was the Director of Advanced Air Vehicles Program at ARMD at NASA, and he's got degrees, advanced degrees from Georgia Tech, Purdue, and Carnegie Mellon University. So, Jimmy, turn it over to you. Thanks.
So let me start by adding my welcome to everyone here. So good to see you all here for this 5th annual John Glenn Memorial Symposium. I want to say thanks to the American Astronautical Society and Jim for organizing this, putting this together, and giving an opportunity to really feature the great work that our scientists and engineers at NASA and with our partners in industry and at the universities are doing to make space flight and space exploration happen. I want to thank Dr. Ward and all of your staff here at Case Western Reserve University for hosting us here again this year. What a lovely venue, a fantastic venue for this event. And of course, I have to say a very special thanks to all of our staff at Glenn who work behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and all around, doing all the things that make all of this kind of come together and work. So thank you to all of you for all of your efforts. I also want to take a moment and recognize a few of our distinguished speakers coming from NASA and all over NASA. Jim Freed, the Associate Administrator for Exploration Systems Development, who's leading our Moon to Mars and our Artemis activities. A.C. Sharania, NASA's Chief Technologist. Dr. Joel Kearns, our Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration within our Science Mission Directorate. Ellen Gertsen, the Deputy Associate Administrator for our Office of Technology Policy and Strategy. Debbie Tomic, who's our Senior Advisor for Space Infrastructure and Logistics. Trudy Cortez, our Director of Technology Demonstration Missions in our Space Technology Mission Directorate. Lee Noble, the Director of the Integrated Aviation Systems Program in Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate. And Dr. Nateri Madhavan, who's the Director of the Advanced Air Vehicles Program in Aeronautics, who's spending most of his time now cleaning up the messes of his predecessor. That's an inside joke, but many of you clearly know that. Since last time, wow, such a whole bunch of stuff has happened. It's been an incredible time to be at NASA. It's been an incredible time to be part of our journey in terms of aviation and space. Just so many accomplishments in the last year. Sustainable aviation and our Sustainable Flight National Partnership has made tremendous headway. We've tested some very large-scale electric propulsion components. We've completed technology demonstrations as part of our hybrid thermally efficient core project. And of course, the big most recent news was the award of the X-66A Sustainable Flight Demonstrator, which is going to demonstrate really new and interesting and novel aero configurations that are going to change the way future commercial aircraft look and fly. We've also made a lot of progress on the X-59. We finished assembly this year. This is the airplane that's going to fly and demonstrate that we can fly supersonically, but make the boom so that it's not really a boom anymore. It's a little bit more like a rumble, so that perhaps we can open that supersonic commercial market back up to flight. We finished assembly this year, and we're hoping to get to flight test, get it to its first flight later on this year. The double asteroid redirect test. We successfully flew a spacecraft and impacted an asteroid, and were able to demonstrate that we were able to change its trajectory. That is such a critical step in being able to take that first step toward planetary protection, ensuring that one day if an asteroid decides it wants to come a little bit too close, we have something that we can do about it. Of course, a lot of important science happening on the International Space Station, including the flow boiling and condensation experiment being led out of Glenn. And the capstone was our Artemis I launch, and then the recovery of the Orion spacecraft. The first time that a human-rated spacecraft has been back to the moon in 50 years. Artemis I was a huge accomplishment, but it really is just the beginning. And it offers us a chance to kind of reflect and put it in perspective and draw some parallels, really, to the work of the namesake of our center, the namesake of this conference, John Glenn. John Glenn flew in the 1960s, early 1960s, on Friendship 7, part of the Mercury program. That year, the President had announced to the Congress a bold ambition to take Americans to the moon within that decade. A huge ambition and a tough ambition. A lot of visibility. There was competition. The Soviets had already beaten us to the first satellite. The Soviets were already putting people in space. They were the first to get there. But nevertheless, and undaunted, we were going to proceed forward. But we had to do so smartly. We had to learn as we go, because there's a lot of unknown that had never been done before. New technologies. It's a new mission to try to get to the moon. And so we did demonstration flights. We did suborbital flights, first without a crew. Then we actually launched a chimpanzee. And then we took people up. Gus Grissom did that flight. Alan Shepard did that flight. And then we went to orbit. And again, we did something without a crew, and we sent a chimpanzee. But then after we demonstrated all of that, that critical important next step was sending a human to demonstrate that a human could stay in flight around the Earth. And that's what John Glenn did on the Friendship 7. He orbited 3 times. He was the first person to orbit more than once. And that critical step established that, yes, that existence proved people can fly in space. And then that was a huge stepping point that helped us launch from Mercury into Apollo and eventually put boots on the moon, American boots on the moon. What a huge step. Well, here we are with Artemis. We don't need to demonstrate that people can fly in orbit, because we have people flying in orbit, living in orbit, working in orbit every day on the International Space Station. But nevertheless, there's competition to get to the moon. Nevertheless, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of unknowns. There's new technologies. There's new ways of doing business. And so Artemis 1 was that demonstration flight without a crew. It achieved all of its objectives and then some. And when we successfully were able to recover the Orion vehicle, what a wealth of data and learning that we're getting from that, so that when we launch people on Artemis 2, we'll know that they can have that mission go and be successful. And that launch of Artemis 2 is going to be that next important phase where we're going to have people orbit the moon to demonstrate that that spacecraft and that technology is able to do that mission and ready to set up. And what's different about it this time is this time we're going to stay. Artemis is that stepping point. It's that key that's going to demonstrate the technologies and the capabilities to establish a sustainable presence at the moon, in cislunar space and on the surface. So this is a huge mission and a huge undertaking. In fact, Artemis is just the beginning of a much larger vision, our Moon to Mars vision, which says that we're going to go out there and establish that sustainable presence. That sustainable presence is going to be an opportunity for our industry to grow and thrive and create new markets, but it's also going to establish the ability for us to live and work in space further away from the Earth than ever before and lay the groundwork for us to eventually get to Mars. And all of this is much part of a much larger blueprint for space exploration, where we'll learn how to go out and explore further and further out into our solar system. Again, it's an ambitious vision, it's an ambitious mission, but this year we laid out our objectives. These are the things that we must accomplish to make it all happen. 63 different objectives in 4 areas, science being very important because that learning. Infrastructure, we have to have the ability to work and operate. Transportation and habitation, the ability to get there and to live there. And of course, operations, the ability to work there. All of that has to be in place, and Glenn is right in the middle of it all. But it has a tremendous number of both challenges and opportunities. And this is where the work that we do in developing advanced technologies is so critical. We need to develop high-power electric systems that can drive the robotic missions, that can drive the human missions, that can drive all of the things that we're going to need to be at the moon sustainably. Not only at the surface, but in the spacecraft as well. And Glenn is right in the middle of all that work. We need high-power electric propulsion systems that have the efficiency to operate for long periods of time. For example, the Gateway is going to be a space station orbiting the moon. It's going to need an electric propulsion system that can last and work for a long time. And that's the kind of work that we're doing. Of course, if we're going to go further and further, we have to work on things like cryogenic fluid management, because we're going to have to be able to refuel, and we're going to have to be able to transfer these fuels, these propellants in space. And of course, communications. Once we're up there, and especially when we start spending extended periods on the other side of the moon, we can't lose our communications. We have to have secure communications that we know we can count on. All of that's going to drive new technology, new advances. And at the same time, here at home, we're going to be working on aeronautics, learning new technologies, advancing new technologies to eventually get us to a vision of sustainability here on Earth, where we don't contribute emissions, carbon or other harmful emissions to our atmosphere, but instead we can fly cleanly and sustainably. And at the same time, open new markets, such as high-speed flight and advanced air mobility, that are also clean and sustainable. So there's a lot of work going on. It's a great opportunity with a lot of challenges, but we're going to hear a lot more about these and so many other topics this week. And so with that, welcome again to the John Glenn Symposium. Thanks.
It is in our nature to explore the unknown. We cannot help but look over the horizon, drawn to go further, to wonder what is out there, wonder what opportunities and discoveries await us. The time has come to embark on our next great adventure into the unknown, one full of possibilities and challenges. The obstacles that lie ahead are many, but we are ready to face them head on. We're ready because we have put in the work, trained for it, and made the sacrifices. We're creating new systems, developing people, performing research, and improving our knowledge to do the unthinkable. We are revolutionizing how we fly here on Earth, using green technologies and advanced aircraft concepts. And we are returning to the moon, where we will explore, adapt, and discover wonders. There, we will spark a lunar economy, build infrastructure, return the benefits back to Earth, and inspire the world to come with us. We will use the moon as our proving ground, providing the innovation, inspiration, and confidence to go beyond. This has been 50 years in the making. We will spend the next 50 accomplishing more than we ever dreamed, sending humans deeper into the universe than ever before, where we will innovate for the future, live longer, realize the unimaginable, and look to the horizon for what's next. The next era of exploration is happening now. Welcome to the 2023 John Glenn Memorial Symposium, where we are powering innovation from Earth to Mars.
Excellent. Thank you, NASA, for putting together that video. Appreciate that. And thank you, Jimmy, very much for the warm welcome and excellent comments.